2, 1. Fragments of Silicon, providing you with bite-sized chunks of your favorite element.
Welcome to another installment of the Fragments Silicon European Edition, our last installment for the year. I mean, it's not that big a deal since the year is ending in, 3 weeks?
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, this week we've got, forgive me if I mispronounce this, András Illés of Progorion LLC.
Should I correct you, maybe?
Possibly.
Well, my first name is Illés. Sorry. My first name is András. It's like András, but András is from Italy, and András, like Rush, okay? Mm-hmm. András Illés, and the company name is Progorion. Okay, mm-hmm. That's it.
Where are you from?
I'm from Hungary, Budapest.
Ah, yeah. Hungarian names are interesting.
Yeah, sure thing, because, we are from basically Asia, not from Europe originally.
Okay.
Right. So I suppose we should start out by asking how you got interested in video games, both on a professional and a personal level.
Oh, the personal level is just the usual thing. We got an Atari when I was a child, and we played those really simple games with my sisters. After that, we got a Chinese version of Nintendo. I can't even tell the name of this machine. It was just a clone, but it had some kind of Super Mario clones as well, and I love it. Still, nowadays, I love it. And after that, when I was 10, I really wanted a computer. My family was poor. Basically, Hungarians are poor, but we were even more poor than the others. This means that, of course, my family couldn't buy a good PC or any computers. So basically what I did, that I went to shops where people sold their used and very old things, and this way I've got a 286 DX computer. I mean, the CPU was that model with a CGA monitor, that had only 4 colors. But it was nice, and I put it together alone. In fact, first when I tried it, I killed the motherboard this way, because those times those power supplies had cables that were switchable.
Mm-hmm.
and
the magic blue smoke.
Yeah, those were not really user-friendly. I was just a kid, basically. But it was cheap. Those times when I had this computer, my friends had Pentium 1s. Yeah, Pentium 1s, and some of them Pentium 2s. So I learned using DOS and CLI, stuff like that. And I just really liked those stuff. And this is how I got this better understanding of outdated technology that you can see in Computer Tycoon as well. Later on, when I was in high school, I had to decide what I will do later as a profession, and I wanted to be a literature teacher, literature and history, or a game developer. And fortunately, I decided to go with IT. But after that, after I finished my, uh, how should I say it? I've got my degree. Uh, I just couldn't start uh, developing games for a living because it was just, you know, something that a Hungarian can't reach, uh, especially as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the IT industry as a developer. Later, I've got into being a project manager, a product owner, and I finished my business career as a solution architect. And last year, I decided to abandon this whole thing because I just didn't like it to work for people. I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to do something that I really enjoy. I had interesting projects, such as my last project was about biometric signatures and recognizing signatures that you create on a tablet or using a vacuum device. But
Huh.
it was interesting, but still I felt like, I'm wasting my time because I'm really into arts. I create music, I draw, I'm really interested in marketing, and I wanted to do all of this stuff instead of sitting in those brainstorming sessions and talking to people who doesn't have any understanding of technology. So that's my story, how I become an indie game developer. I made a really uh, wide market research before I started this project of mine, and I felt like I felt that this project will be okay, because management type of games has a market nowadays. While I think this is a genre that even one guy can make. Not like, for example, the worst thing that an indie game developer can start creating is an MMORPG because there you must create that huge content.
Oh
But
yeah,
here,
you need tons of people to like make sure
yeah,
everything keeps going smoothly once even if you manage to get the whole thing started.
exactly. Uh, I've created games before, Computer Tycoon, and in fact, I wanted to create a multiplayer game called Animal Dominion, and it was online and multiplayer, but still not a real MMO because it lacked the content. It was basically a small strategy game with 3 races, and that's all. You didn't have thousands of places, thousands of weapons, thousands of stuff, or thousands of texts, for example. This way, maybe you can create an MMO-like, or at least an online strategy game. But this is something that you don't want to start with. But a management game is another topic. So that's all. We are here at Computer Tycoon.
Indeed. Well, I suppose another question is, do you develop games full time, or do you still have like a day job?
Uh, I do it as a full-time job right now. Yeah. So last year I started the company, and I worked for my last employer part-time. But in May I went full-time in the.
Ah,
Hmm.
and how's the experience been compared to working in an office and working for other people?
Also, you know, uh, I have my own schedule. I can work through a night. It doesn't matter if I can't wake up next morning, or literally I'm my own boss. It's from one point is very good because I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. But from another respect, another point of view, it's bad because I'm a really harsh boss for myself.
Very well put. Like, heard similar stories from other indie developers. Like, now, are you a one-man show or do you work with other people?
Most of the time, I work alone. As I mentioned, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the programmer, but I create art, I create music, I cut videos. I can do everything, but still I need some help because, for example, the banner that you can see with those people around, uh, this is something that I couldn't make uh, in this level. This is just too much for me. I can create faces, but in this that with those details it's just too much, and it's a banner is just way too much important to create myself.
And
Oh,
well, how did you who created the banner then?
oh well, I worked with a guy from Malaysia. He had some illustrations in Star Citizen and I really liked his work, so I wrote him an email and we worked together. Well, mm, it is another interesting thing in being an indie game developer and uh, working together with others, that more people means more trouble all the time. So while help is a really good thing, still I didn't have any guy, uh, excluding the guy who made the voice acting on my trailer video. He was a professional, but all of the other guys were, I don't know, they were not able to keep deadlines. They promised a lot of stuff that they were unable to accomplish, and they didn't have the time that they promised, stuff like that. And because of this, I had to postpone some parts of the game again and again and again. Uh, yeah, so I don't know why I started to talk about this, but ask again. I'm here.
I'm like, that's unfortunate to hear. Now, but how did you get around the delayed parts issue?
Well, I just found other stuff that I can do meanwhile. That's it.
I suppose that's all you can do.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so you've developed a few other games in the lead up to Computer Tycoon. Uh, were they like tests to see what you wanted to do, or were they commercial ventures to raise some money, or was there some other reason you made these other games?
Yeah. Well, my very first game uh, was a flash game in which you could hit down my classmate. He was a spy in this game. I was 14 years old when I made it. In the background, my favorite band at that time, Marduk, uh, was played. It's black metal. After that, I created a lot of games. Really, I used RPG Maker. I used Flash. I used XNA. I used some other game creators. I can't remember. After that, I used Pascal and I wrote ASCII character-based games. Later on, I used C++. Maybe my first game that was, something that we should look up is a strategy game. Its name was Final War of Traviania. Traviania is an online browser-based game made by Austrians. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Not off the top of my head, no.
I try to look it up. Yeah, it's here.
Okay, do you have a link?
Yeah, sure. Just a moment.
It's fine.
Hmm.
Like, live broadcasting. Like, try to reduce the dead air. That's,
Oh, it's strange because I can't find the actual game, only pictures. So
Jeez.
it
Oh.
seems that it's not running anymore.
Oh, lost to the ages of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well. Though, I suppose we should forge ahead with like some your more recent ventures like Star Temple TD, Animal Domination, and Hidden Animals.
Okay. Very well. So Animal Dominions is well a game that I never finished. Again, MMO RPGs are bad, but still an online strategy game is just way too much for an indie game developer. And I really wanted to create this game. I was really passionate about it, but I wasn't able to recognize or say myself that, hey, this is bullshit, stop it, you waste your time. um,
Oh, it looks like an interesting idea.
I created the engine, I created the network layer, and a fun fact that those are the hardest part of creating this type of game because I managed to handle thousands of online players and all the traffic. But when I had to create the content and the graphics, there were the problem because content is time. Maybe I could manage it. Maybe I could finish it in years, more years. I worked for 3 years on it actually, but uh, but but again, this is not the only problem. The other problem is graphics. I didn't use an engine like Unity or Unreal Engine or something like that. I made it from scratch in a Visual Studio in C Sharp. And the problem is that there you don't have any APIs to handle animations and advanced graphic stuff. And, it was just too much to create from scratch as well. I tried to use some frameworks, some graphic frameworks like maybe Agra 3D, but it didn't work out eventually. And also, I was thinking about putting this whole project into Unity, but Unity at this time had only the mono-develop 2.0 supported, and I used a lot of stuff from the Microsoft.NET packages that are not there. As far as I know, the latest Unity version has a much higher Microsoft.NET framework compatibility, but still I don't think that I will continue this project soon, or if I will continue it, this will be a single player game again. So graphics stopped me here, and this is why I failed eventually and I gave up because I made animations and I wasn't able to put it there. It sucks because without animations, without any motion in the game, it's just way too outdated nowadays. And while people need great ideas, graphics are what sells a game. So After that, I created Hidden Animals. This is a 2 week project. This time, I decided to create something and finish it. Doesn't matter what's the cost. And this is basically just a small game where you have to remember names of animals in Spanish. If you are a Spaniard, if you speak Spanish, then you can learn English words this way. If you are an English speaking man, then you can learn Spanish this way because there are 3 words there. In the first word, you have only English words. In the third one, you have only Spanish words. And in the middle, you have both of the languages shown. This is a hidden object game. You have to find animals on the screen, and that's all. I made the music for it. I play on piano. I wrote some songs, but this game is. I'm not sure if I should call it a flop because on a casual side, it made a bunch of money, and compared to the time that I put in, it's okay. Although I couldn't make a living from this if I would do this full time again and again. That's not enough.
Yeah, I was curious as to why you made that, since it seems very different from the other things. But I guess trying to make a manageable sized project makes sense, and it seems like seems like a fairly interesting way to learn languages, I guess.
I, I didn't find anything like that, and I had small hopes that maybe people will find it interesting. But without marketing power, it doesn't matter if you create the best game on the world, still you can't sell it. And I don't have the marketing power, and it's obviously not the best game on the world. So it's not a commercial success or not a commercial thing that you could even sell or try to sell, really.
Right then. So, how did you arrive at Computer Tycoon as a concept?
I mentioned that I made my first PC myself, and I really liked this whole world as a child. And in fact, when I first played SimCity, my first simulation game, I was in love, and I wanted to create games that time. That was my moment when I really embraced this idea of being a developer. And this is the time where Computer Tycoon are coming from. I wanted to create games, and I had a lot of ideas, and I just put out of those again. And I searched for games. What's done? What would be new now? And Computer Tycoon was a surprise that uh, it's unexistent yet. I was surprised, and I knew this moment that, oh man, this is the game of my childhood, and I can create it now. So I made it. That's it.
I'm like, yeah, it is. I suppose kind of surprising that another game called Computer Tycoon doesn't exist, considering
Yes.
proliferation. Although, from what I've seen and what I've played, this isn't actually what we would call a classical tycoon game. Something like Roller Coaster Tycoon or Railroad Tycoon. You call this more a grand strategy game, correct?
Correct. Yes. This is because when people think about tycoon games, they really think about Roller Coaster Tycoon or Transport Tycoon or nowadays Game Dev Tycoon. But most of the time, those old tycoon games are similar in that you can build stuff. You can build stations, you can build roads, you can build cities or something like that. This is a really creative thing that you can build your own stuff. And that's not missing from Computer Tycoon. But tycoon games are uh, mostly business games, and this is the most important thing in tycoon games. You can sell something for people in tycoon games. You give a service and run a business in a tycoon game. While computer tycoon is not only about this, because uh, my favorite genres are these simulation and management games and strategy games. And I really wanted to make the breed of these two genres, and that's what came out. I love grand strategy games. I love maps. When in Europe Universalis you conquer the world, it's something that's really addictive. When you start with your small nation, your small country, and at the end you own the half the world, and you are sitting there just to see how you conquer the next country and the next country and the next country, and how big you are, and you are trying to keep it together. And basically what you're doing, you just watch a map, and that's all. And again, this is something that is important, because as an indie game developer I can't create a lot of content alone, but I can create a map, I can create a system, I can create strategies, I can create the tools to handle your management games. Another really nice example for this type of games is Democracy. I don't know if you know Klivsky. He's a really nice guy from Britain, and he is also a solo indie game developer who mostly creates management games and strategy games. And in Democracy, you have basically circles, and each circle has a meaning, such as unemployment, or hospitals, or education, or criminals, so stuff like that. And you manage those circles on the screen. You don't have graphics, but still, this was a success game, a real success, a financial success. But it doesn't have graphics, and that's where an indie game developer can go to create games that have a really nice idea, and can offer something that is really new, that others didn't make yet. I could create my own uh, FPS game, but it would be trash. Or I could create my own racing game, but still it would be again a piece of shit. It would be ugly, it would be boring, it would be, you know, nothing. But if I can find something, a subject that people are interested in, then maybe I have a chance to create something unusual or new.
Oh, I mean, there's certainly a lot of interest in computers. So, um, probably a good choice here. Anyway, Petty Fan's been playing the game for the audience, uh, and he's our computer guy. So I'll see if he has any questions about this game at this point.
Okay.
Petty Fan?
This, like, I'm not a big into like grand strategy games, so this is kind of complicated for me. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah. The game has a really long learning curve, and I don't have a full tutorial yet. And this is a real problem. I know. Uh, who didn't play grand strategy games are basically lost here.
Yeah. So you are adding a tutorial, like a more full tutorial later on.
Yeah. Basically, you will start from a garage, and your first thing that you will have to do is to create your own first computer from the technology that you already have. After you created this thing, uh, I will show you how you can sell it in more countries. And step by step, I will give you the features, and that's how you can learn playing. But now you have everything from the first moment, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah. So this is one of those. You'll basically dumb it down later on, so people like me could probably get into it easier.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, it would be really not beneficial to implement a tutorial because the game is changing.
Hmm.
I had to recreate it again and again, and it's time consuming.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Well, how many builds have you gone through so far?
Hmm, around 14 or 15, I think. I mean, those were published.
Mm-hmm. Uh, that's quite a bit. And this game is, I think, still in alpha.
Yes,
Yeah. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more builds in the future.
indeed.
Anyway, so this game spans the history of computers as well. Like when you're starting out, we're um, talking about late 70s, early 80s time frame. Was there any particular reason why you wanted to start into the primordia of microcomputers?
Yeah, sure. You know, as I mentioned, this is a childhood dream, and my first computer was uh, maybe the second model that you can have in Computer Tycoon. Also, before that era, we didn't really have computers uh, at home, and computers were only sold for nuclear plants or for NASA or governments, and that's it. I couldn't create a game from it. If I could start, if I wanted to start before the 80s or 70s, but I really wanted to show the history of computers because this is intentional that I'd like to put a lot of nostalgia into the game. My generation really loved those old computers, and basically, uh, this this generation is my biggest customer pie. You know,
And how closely do the computers in this game model like real world models? That is to say, do you have actual real world computers here, or a legally distinct substitute?
the illustrations are from real world computers, all of them. Of course, I couldn't include branding or stuff that I don't have the license to do so. And the technologies are from the real world as well. Um, I really tried to include as much technology as I can, but at some parts I decided to be a bit more casual. For example, I have a lot of technology mm, referring to operating systems, and those are accurate. But with CPUs, I wasn't really. Uh, how should I say? Uh, Basically, what I did that I don't talk about cache. I don't talk about frequency as something important in Computer Tycoon. Instead, with CPUs, I just chose some brands, some real world CPU models. For example, Pentium 1. You know, Pentium is a trademark, it's not a technology. But I decided to do this because if I would put there all of the technology that I could, it would be really boring and people wouldn't even understand what's there. I have a lot of messages that, hey, I thought that I'm an expert in IT and I have no idea what I'm doing here and what are those stuff already, while I didn't included everything that I could.
And what sorts of computers can you build? Are they all like PC derived, or do you have like Macintoshes, or going back Commodores? And is this even like international with ZX Spectrums and so on and so forth?
The first computer that you can see is Altair, and basically this is the father of all of our computers nowadays. But personal computer versus home computer is an endless and pointless argument, because both of those are just computers. And the first and biggest reason why we call personal computers, as we call them, because IBM at the time thought that if he will name his computers as home computers, then big corporations won't buy it, because home computers are for playing games, not for business and work. So this is a marketing decision that they named it as a personal computer and not a home computer. In Computer Tycoon, I made 4 big categories. The first one is home computers. The second one is personal computers. And with personal computers, basically, I followed the technology line of IBM. And with home computers, I mixed in everything else. Atari, Commodore, anything that I can find out there.
And what was it hard to do this kind of research?
Oh, not really, because I love this subject and I grew in this.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I suppose on the inverse, how long a period are we talking about here? Like, what's the end point?
Oh, it's 2034. In that year, the game ends. You can create, after personal computers, portable computers and handheld computers. And my idea was behind this that after a while, I think we will be able to reduce computer size on a level that it won't really matter if it's a laptop or not, or it won't matter if it's a handheld computer or a laptop, for example, because it will be so small, and we will use, in my opinion, holographic projections and maybe connectors to my nerves, so we can control our computers with our minds. That it doesn't matter if we have these categories or not. We will have computers, and that's it. And this is the point where we should not focus on this whole thing anymore. But I couldn't predict what we will have after the technological singularity that is a main thing in the game. Do you know what is technological singularity?
Yes, I'm aware of what the singularity is. Like, for those who don't know what the singularity is, well, I suppose there's a couple of different definitions. Like, the classical definition is any point in technology where the previous generations could not imagine it.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of the real point of it is also that, like, the current perspective of it is when computers start to get better at making computers than people are, basically. Yes. So that, like, technology is improving itself without human input.
Well, and also in regards to the upcoming singularity, it has a lot to do with human immortality, or the reduction of senescence.
There is a guy called Kurzweil. He has a company creating keyboards, music instruments, and he's a really, really well-known engineer, and he has a prediction that in 2030 we will reach technological singularity and immortality. If you look up this guy on the internet on his site, he even recommends you to drink some kind of tea to survive until this day, because on that day you will be immortal. Yeah, and nano robots will regenerate your body again and again.
Like, yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of him and his views. I don't know how accurate they're going to be. It's always hard to tell when it comes to speculating in the future. Although actual immortality sounds like it defy the laws of physics. It's like specifically that second law of thermodynamics. But I suppose that would get into a larger question of what is humanity and what would be you. It's all quite philosophical.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
I suppose all of this is represented in the end stages of the game.
Yes. In fact, this is a way to win the game. If you research all of the technology, if you got anything, then you reach technological singularity.
And I suppose the other question that beckons is, what are the other win states?
Well, reaching a monopoly state, basically making all of your opponents bankrupt, and the other one is just survive until the end of the game, just as in Transport Tycoon, for example. I can't remember the exact date, but there around 2030 again, you could survive and the game is gone. Mostly because they didn't put more technology into the game. You couldn't research better trains anymore, so it's pointless. Just like in Computer Tycoon, after you got all of the technology, you are selling your computers in all of the countries. Why should you play anymore? Especially when you have only one competitor left. Oh, it was a funny thing that when I created Computer Tycoon and I made the first version of the AI, and I tried it in the 80s, all of my competitors went bankrupt, excluding one. And it's really funny because the same happened in real life, that at the start of the 80s, only Macintosh and IBM were able to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it was funny. But I changed the algorithms because it's just way too boring. You should have more opponents.
And how many opponents can you have in a session?
Well, as far as I remember, 8.
Is that like a set number, or can you change that to have more, less?
You can change it. In fact, you can turn down all of them, and this gives you a kind of sandbox mode, but it's boring in my opinion, and I'm not sure if I will leave it like that.
Fair enough. Let me see. Are you using an engine like Unity or Unreal to make this, or something else?
Unity.
I
use Unity. With Animal Dominions, one of the reasons why I failed was that I didn't have the control that I have in Unity. So I just gave it up, and I decided to go with Unity.
And has Unity been working out for you so far?
Well, it has its own problems, such as whenever they create a new version, I have to work hours to make my game run again, and this is bad. I wasn't able to transfer my project to the latest version because of this. And it sucks, especially because after a while the assets that I use will follow Unity, and I will be forced to follow Unity as well. But it's way much faster to create games with Unity than without it. The alternative would be Unreal, the Unreal engine, but Unreal is for FPS or TPS games mostly, not for management games. One of the biggest problems with Unity is that its graphical user interface that you can create with it is just a piece of shit, man. You don't have even toggles or list boxes working there. While Unity is running for I don't know how much years, but it's a shame that I can't create a Dropbox list in Unity by default, and I have to, fix it myself.
Yeah, well, different engines are optimized for different things, and I imagine strategy games are probably fairly low on the list for a lot of them.
Yes, that's sure.
I suppose, given that you're using Unity, have you looked into making this game for other computer platforms? Is it just a Windows game, or is it Mac and Linux as well?
I support Macintosh right now and Windows. I won't support Linux for a while, and if I will create a free download for Linux users. And this is not because I'm such a big fan of Linux, but it's really dangerous to upload a Linux version to Steam because you have less than 1% of your sales from Linux. Meanwhile, Linux has a lot of different distributions, and you just cannot make your game running on all of them. But people won't understand this. Everybody has his own favorite distribution, and if your game doesn't support it, they will write a negative review, and you will be just fucked up on Steam. A lot of my fellow developers talked about this, and basically supporting Linux on Steam is cancer. I couldn't tell it anything else. If you make it, you will lose. And this is why I won't sell a Linux version, but I will create a Linux version for free so people could download it from my site or something like that. But I won't support any mobile platforms, I think, because this game just doesn't fit on mobile. The screens are too small, and maybe the hardware isn't enough either.
Oh God, if you're going grand strategy, yeah, you need a lot more computer power than you think you do, because I'm thinking about Crusader Kings. There can be some really complicated computations going on behind the scenes.
Yep, that's true.
Anyway, so what do you have planned in terms of implementation outside of a tutorial, in terms of content for this game in the future?
Well, I have a really long to-do list with mostly things that could make the experience more smooth and predictable. One of the problems next to being the learning curve way too long is that the UI isn't really easy at this moment. So first, I'd like to fix this in this year, and next year in January, I will start adding much bigger new features, such as hiring people to your company and manage them like you can manage people in startup company or in Game Dev Tycoon. I will add an option to sell hardware elements separately. Maybe this is the two most important next to the historical mode, where I will give you a map that shows you exactly the world, how it looked like in the 70s. And this will have a bit more reality there. For example, I think I will force people to start in the States, and you won't be able to sell in communist countries, stuff like that.
That would be a real world reflection. Like,
Yeah.
um, let's see. How long do you think it'll take for this game to exit early access?
I think the next summer is where I should focus or aim. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you will reach that goal.
Yeah, I hope so.
Indeed. Right. So I'll see if my colleagues here have any final questions for you.
I do not.
Oh.
Sorry, I had the mic muted. I don't have a whole lot. It's certainly an interesting thing to do a strategy simulation of, and I'm looking forward to. I mean, it's still not completed, so I'm not sure exactly some of the changes you'll make, but I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Thank you.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses myself. You know, and hope. One last question, and it's about the price. Currently, this game is going for $10 on Steam. Is that going to increase as the game gets more and more content, or is that and exits early access, or is that going to stay the same?
It will increase. Yeah. Basically, nowadays we have those huge sales on Steam, and this really changed how you should price your game. I think the $10 price tag is a fair thing, and I would keep it like that if people wouldn't wait for the sales anyways, you know. Nowadays it's better if you put your price tag a bit higher so you can give a bigger sale percentage when we have the summer sale or winter sale.
Yes,
That
I've
makes
heard
sense.
that
A lot of people do think about when stuff is on sale as like a reason to buy things.
And yeah, early access games increasing in price is pretty common as well. It's called the Minecraft model.
Yeah. I have 4,000 sales now, but I have 9,000 people on wish list.
Well, hopefully the game picks up speed as it reaches completion.
We will see.
Yeah. All right. I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and you know, certainly look forward to seeing what develops in Computer Tycoon. Is it only on Steam, or is it going to be on like Humble Bundle or other storefronts when it exits early access?
Well, GOG refused the game because they said, "Oh, it's really nice, but it's too small for them." And I'm not sure if I will go with Humble Bundle because, you know, it's time to manage those sites, and time is my most precious resource. So I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Like, yeah, I've heard that about GOG from others. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the game is Computer Tycoon. It's on Steam for $9.99. Be sure to pick it up now while it's in alpha state. And it's pretty content rich in its current form. and there will be major updates in the months ahead. All right. And that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to join us for our main show on Wednesday, when we have Dean Dodrill returning to the broadcast to talk about Never Stop Sneaking. And until then, I wish you good gaming.